It is the night of June 15, 1944. A storm is tearing across the English Channel. Rain lashes the windows. Wind shakes the trailers. And in one small command post in the south of England, Dwight D. Eisenhower sits alone in the dark. Outside, more than 150,000 men are waiting. They are packed onto ships. They are cold. They are restless. And in a few hours, Eisenhower will give the order that sends them into the largest amphibious invasion in history, D-Day. If it works, it may end Nazi Germany's grip on Europe. If it fails, the beaches of Normandy could become a graveyard. Most men in Eisenhower's position would be thinking about triumph, a speech, a photograph, a future victory. But Eisenhower was thinking about something else. He picked up a small piece of paper and wrote a note about defeat. Not blame, not excuses, defeat. He was preparing for the possibility that history would call this mission a disaster. And he was preparing to say one thing above all else. It was my fault. Eisenhower was not just commanding an army. He was carrying the fate of the Western world on his shoulders. By the summer of 1944, the war had been grinding on for years. Factories in America were working non-stop. Britain was crowded with men, machines, and supplies. Every branch of the Allied war effort had been building toward one moment, one landing, one day, one chance. And Eisenhower knew the price of failure. If the invasion broke apart on the beaches, there would be no easy recovery. The Germans had spent years fortifying the coast. The tide had to be right. The aircraft had to strike on time. The paratroopers had to land in the dark and survive long enough to matter. Everything had to go nearly perfectly, and even then, it might not be enough. By then, the stress was showing. He was smoking constantly. His health was strained. His nerves were frayed. He knew exactly what was at stake. Not just a military operation, not just a battle, but the lives of thousands of young men and the future of the war itself. Then the weather turned against him. June 15th was supposed to be the day. But the channel became violent. Winds climbed, clouds thickened, the sea turned ugly, and for a moment it seemed as though nature itself was saying no. A landing in that weather could be catastrophic. Too much chaos in the surf, too little visibility in the air, too much risk everywhere. But there was another problem. If they delayed too long, the entire invasion timetable could collapse. The tides would be wrong for days, then weeks, and every extra day gave the Germans more time to prepare. Eisenhower's meteorologist, James Stagg, brought him the smallest kind of hope. A narrow weather window. Not good weather, just better weather. A little opening, a short chance. The kind of chance history sometimes gives only once. Eisenhower listened. The room was tense. The air was heavy. And for a long moment, nobody spoke. Then he made the decision. Okay, let's go. 3 words, and history moved. That night, Eisenhower went to see the paratroopers, the 101st Airborne. Young men with blackened faces and nervous smiles. Men who were about to jump into darkness behind enemy lines. Many of them knew they might not make it back. Some had been told the losses could be terrible. Eisenhower walked among them anyway. He spoke to them. He tried to steady them. He looked at the faces of boys who were trying very hard to look like men. And then the planes began to take off. One after another, the engines roared. The lights vanished into the night, and Eisenhower stood there watching them disappear. Alone, silent, knowing that he had just sent them into one of the most dangerous operations in modern warfare. He could only hope the plan would hold. He could only wait. Back in his trailer, Eisenhower did something almost no leader would ever do. He wrote a failure statement, a private note in case the invasion collapsed. It was short, formal, and devastating. If the landings failed, he would tell the world that the operation had not gained a foothold, that the troops had been withdrawn. And then came the part that revealed his character. He wrote that the infantry, the Navy, and the Air Force had done everything bravery and duty could do. And if blame attached to the attempt, it was his alone. No political cover, just responsibility. He did not blame the weather. He did not blame his officers. He did not blame the men. He claimed the failure before it even happened. In fact, he was so exhausted that he even dated the note incorrectly. A small detail, but somehow a human one. He folded the paper, put it away, and carried it with him like a confession he hoped he would never have to make. The note was never needed. D-Day succeeded. The beaches were taken. The Allied foothold in France held. The invasion had survived the weather, the chaos, and the fear, but the note remains one of the most revealing documents of the war, because it shows something larger than victory. It shows character. In a time when leaders often hide behind committees, advisors, and public relations, Eisenhower was prepared to do the opposite. He was ready to stand alone, to absorb the blame, to protect the men under his command, even if it cost him everything. That tiny piece of paper says more about leadership than many speeches ever could. He was not trying to protect his reputation. He was trying to protect the honor of the soldiers who had followed him into danger. We remember D-Day for the courage on the beaches, and we should, but we should also remember the courage in the trailer. The man who sat in the dark, the man who knew the odds, the man who was prepared to fail publicly so that his men would not be buried under his mistake. Dwight Eisenhower understood something many people in power never learn. Real leadership is not just about taking credit when things go right. It is about taking responsibility when everything might go wrong. He did not need a speech. He did not need applause. He needed a pencil and the strength to write 6 words that define true command. If blame rested on the attempt, it is mine alone. Now that is a story worth remembering. If this kind of leadership story speaks to you, subscribe to the President's Stories. There are many more moments in American history where character mattered just as much as victory, and sometimes even more.